already introduced myself.
Okay, here we go. So first question is whether people watched the videos. I know Siva did. Did anybody else watch the Golden Rule video? It's not very long. I could just go ahead and play it again if that's what you would prefer. Any thoughts? Did everybody watch it?
I did not.
I
I
did.
did not.
I did.
All right, I'm just gonna run it real quick and then think about it. Here we go. Oh, wait a minute. Did I do screen share? I haven't done this in so long now that
You're good.
I forget. Here we go. Okay, turn on dock player. Dock player.
It's kind of aggressive religiosity, sometimes called fundamentalism, has grown up in every single one of the major world traditions as a rebellion against this imbalanced world, a rebellion against humiliation, powerlessness.
Religion has focused more and more on a narrow understanding of religious dogma.
And there's a sense of rage expressed in religious terms.
Every religion, as I understand them, has a history of intolerance, and every religion has principles for overcoming intolerance.
I want people to hear the compassionate voice of religion. I want to change the conversation and bring compassion to the forefront of people's attention.
Compassion is at the heart of my religion.
And religion, when it's done in a healthy way, should enhance that.
It's recognizing each other's humanity. It's realizing that it doesn't matter if they're Jewish or Christian or Buddhist or Hindu or Islamic, is that they're a fellow human being, that they're suffering, and that that's avoidable.
As a Muslim, you have to submit to the will of God, and submitting to the will of God means that you have to be compassionate and kind to your fellow human beings.
That which is hateful to you, don't do to your fellow.
Love thy neighbor as thyself. I am thy God.
Don't do to others what you wouldn't like them to do to you.
The golden rule is a golden rule in so many different world religions.
And we need to somehow find a way to implement the golden rule globally so that we treat other nations, other peoples, whoever they may be, as we would wish to be treated ourselves. We need a charter for our own souls, for our own sake, but also for the sake of the world, the sake of our perilously divided world, which is in one sense drawn together more closely than ever before. The world will be invited to make their own contributions, make their own comments, tell their own stories about compassion or the lack of it.
The bus was rounding a hairpin corner and was suddenly sheared in half by a logging truck. I had broken my back, my pelvis, all my ribs. I had collapsed lungs and major internal injuries. At that point, a young man, not a doctor, not even a nurse, came and sewed up my arm with a needle and thread. And he saw the need, and this young man saved my life.
And that man took off his leather jacket, took off his sweater, and then took his shoes off in the middle of the street, removed his socks, and gave them to the naked man.
And both of them began to cry because it was such a moving experience that this little black lady grew these tomatoes and gave them to someone she didn't know, purely out of a sense of love.
I remember she sat with me while I cried, feeling this just unconditional compassion. It felt like I was drinking fresh water.
And that social worker fought for me to be able to stay in school. And from there, my life evolved.
The task of our generation, whether we are religious people or secular people, is to build a global community where people of all persuasions can live together in peace and harmony.
Okay. So I wanted to, before we'll get to getting your questions or comments, but I wanted to just see if I can figure this out. Well, why don't we go ahead and do that while I figure this out? Any comment about the video or questions about the Charter for Compassion?
Yeah, Susan, are we going to focus on the golden rule or are we going to bring the Beatitudes into it, or
Both.
both? Both? Okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll see how much time we have.
Okay, thanks.
Start with the golden rule and go from there. So, I have stuff on PowerPoint. Have you seen the poster, the golden rule poster? Are you familiar with that? That has, I think it's 13 or so different expressions of this golden rule. And if you've already seen that, I don't think we need to go through a lot, but they're very, very similar. What was interesting to me is Confucianism. Confucianism really isn't really a religion. It's an ethical way of living. So it's not a religious tradition per se, but there it is. Same thing. And then also they have ah, oh, they don't have it. I have it. Um, the golden rule cannot be claimed for any one philosophy or religious tradition. And it's part of the secular world as well. So it doesn't have to be cast in a religious sense. So if we have any nuns or, spiritual but not religious, or questioners, humanists, atheists, whoever, these are all writings, mostly from Greek philosophers, but the last one there was Indian, but the same thing. It's the same idea. Do not do to your neighbor, do not to your neighbor what you would take ill from him. So same, I just think it's important to always remember that, not everything has to be in a religious context. And then I also wanted to bring your attention to the platinum rule, which sort of came into our awareness not too long ago, that the platinum rule is a variation of the golden rule, but it puts it in a different light. It's do unto others as they would like to have you do unto them. So it's making sure that you find out how the other person wants to be treated. Just don't assume that they want to be treated like you, right? Which kind of makes sense. And there were a couple of examples of that.
Can you hold that? I want to take a picture.
Oops, let me come back.
This is, I think, we should continually evaluate every bit of news with this rule.
Yeah. I think it was developed for business leadership styles, and that's where some of this comes from, but I think it applies to other things too. If somebody prefers detailed written instructions, then give them that. If they prefer face-to-face communication, then do that. So you have to listen, right? You have to know and I liked the last one that's on the list. If you want to, you can take a picture if you want to keep these, or I can send them to you. But the last one, respect varying social preferences such as introversion and extroversion. Plan social events that cater to a diverse range of preferences, from intimate gatherings to large parties. I'm a very high introvert. And so to walk into a crowded room of people talking and laughing is like an introvert's nightmare. But take me off into a corner with some chairs and a table, and we can have a conversation together. Well, now that's a different story. Now that's fun. So, but you have to kind of pay attention to does that make sense? Does that kind of make sense?
There's another aspect that I haven't heard you say, and that is specifically in terms of homeless. So there's all kind of high level people associated with city governments who say, well, we should do this and this and this and this with the homeless. That's just stupid. Bring in homeless people and have them be part of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't assume. I can't assume that I know what you want. I can know what I want. And so I figure I'll give that to you, but you may not want that at all. right? So it's a good thing to keep in mind. So here are some questions now to think about this golden rule. It's so familiar to us, right? But how do we really put this into practice?
No,
Now,
I don't think it is familiar to us. If
oh
it was
yeah.
familiar, every single commentator on the news, and I obsessively listen to news on my radio.
Uh-huh.
And the sad thing is, I hear the same news segment over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And today I didn't hear anything new.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Siva, I don't understand that comment in relation to the golden rule, what we were just discussing.
I'm saying that every news commentator would then evaluate whatever happened in the news and judge it against the golden rule or the platinum rule, so that we'd have these what was missing in this world is justice.
Mm.
So
Well,
this is how we measure justice. Is justice happening?
you know that you're on the right track. This is what some of these questions are getting at. So hold on to that and let's see. There are a bunch of them here. We don't have to do them all, but you can see them on the screen, right?
No, it's too small.
Oh, sorry. I will read them, but those of you who can see them, you can read along and pick one. Pick one that you want to kind of sink your teeth into, okay? Can you think of an unpleasant experience in your life history that wouldn't have occurred if someone had applied the golden rule in his or her life? An unpleasant experience, okay? So you can think about that one. Can you think of an unfortunate or tragic event in your community or on the world scene that wouldn't have happened if an individual or individuals had applied the golden rule? All right, that's another one. Can you think of an occasion in your life when you or someone you know applied the golden rule and the results made you happy? Can you think of an occasion in your life when you tried to apply or even enforce the golden rule, but the situation did not improve? And how did that make you feel? Now we're getting down to like nitty gritty. List and describe some ways to bring the golden rule into your daily life. I'm going to skip a couple of these. How could you change the world by applying the golden rule? Oh, here's a good one. Do you sometimes find it difficult to practice the golden rule? And here's something for us as an organization. Can you think of ways that we as individuals or as in our communities can encourage other people to practice the golden rule? And what would it be like if all the people on our planet lived their lives according to the golden rule? Does that give you enough to think about? Does anybody want to take one of those? Kurt, you look puzzled. I didn't mean to put you on a spot. You don't have to go if you're not ready.
I believe he's just muted.
Yeah, you're muted. Oh, I didn't know you. I thought he was pondering.
No, I was just reading. I was reading
Yeah.
all these offerings. This morning I was leading a Zoom call and I had left out a major part of what was intended to happen. And the person, as I moved to the next item, suggested that she's kind of a co-leader. She suggested that maybe it would be good if we did the so-and-so before we went to that next item. And the way she did it, with no judgment, no forcefulness, it was done so gracefully. And then, of course, we made room for that, what we should have been doing, that I had completely skipped. I was a little nervous about all the leadership part, and I just sort of forgot it. I didn't have that particular part in my thoughts. And it was just so, actually, at the end, when we shared among ourselves about things, I shared that as a very important life lesson for me. And this person can be quite verbal and seemingly judgmental when she's just trying to be helpful. But it was terrific. And
That could be an answer to the one that says a time somebody applied the golden rule and the results made you happy.
yep.
Yeah, it's great. Good example. There was somebody, Henrietta was somebody who lived out the golden rule in her life. That was something that meant something to her. Now, the question is, is it even possible? Like the last question, what would the world be like if all the people on the planet lived according to the golden rule? Is that even possible when you get into structures like governments and religions? You know, it's hard enough doing it as individuals sometimes. Maybe some. Let me stop there because I want to give everybody else a chance to answer a question. Did anybody else have a question you wanted to address that was on the list?
No, but I think what occurred to me is being more intentional about not giving people what I think I would like, but trying to think more about what they might need. And I think, what I'm trying to meditate on is how I can be more intentional about that, so.
Yeah, that's very good. Does anybody find it difficult to sometimes practice the golden rule? Can you think of a time when it was just like, I just can't do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, I was at the library on a Friday night, and there was this woman who I thought was homeless. And so the library was closing, and I started talking to her. We continued outside of the Mitchell Park Library, which is in Palo Alto. And I invited her to come to my apartment. This is the second time I've done this. And I am under very careful scrutiny here. They're about to throw me out of this the senior residence. I'm serious. I've got a 6 or 7 page letter from the CEO and signed by his lawyer. And anyhow, so this woman, unlike the other woman, actually had a driver's license.
Okay.
They're supposed to. The address was Hillsborough, I think. Anyhow, so I allowed her to stay overnight, and then the next day I went to something and she didn't. And then, that was in the morning. So Saturday morning, I went to Torah study at Eitz Chaim, which I do almost every Saturday from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And then I come back because I don't really like services. They're just boring and meaningless. But I like to study the Torah to see what the dysfunctional, every Torah story is people being dysfunctional.
What happened with the woman that?
Anyhow, she was, and then I let her stay another night, and then instead of being sort of nice to me, she started telling me that I was not compassionate. That really ticked me off. And I said, I don't feel safe with you here, and you are not allowed to stay.
Yeah.
And then I called for help. And one of the young men who's actually a waiter, who I've befriended, Kyle, his name is, a real sweetheart of a guy. And the two of us just forced her to pack up all her stuff. She not very strong woman. She has this walker kind of thing on rolls.
Yeah.
We march her down and out to the corner of San Antonio, and
It's an example of no good deed goes unpunished, right? That's happened sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Good example.
So
How about Mata? Did you have one?
Oh, she's she's muted. Let's see.
Oh yeah, you're muted.
I'm trying to unmute and
There you
it
go.
works. It's very interesting. You know, it just takes me back to the teachings of Sufism. And what else? I mean, that's where I am. And for us, there's no way I can change you. I can do anything to please you, maybe momentarily. But the only power that I have, the only power that really works is within myself. And so if I can find peace within myself, if I can find, as Ashish was saying at the beginning, who am I, knowing myself and realizing that essence, then that is the beginning. Otherwise, if I start with other people, wanting to have do something for some, and we have families, we have friends, we have communities, we want to be nice to everybody, we want to do the best we can for everybody and apply the golden rule. Absolutely. But it all starts with us. Actually, it ends with us too. It's just not that it just starts and it goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
But the key for me, the key is what happens within me. And if I know that God is not out there somewhere, right? He or she, the essence is right here. All the power is right here. I think that could help. That could help my neighbor. That could help my family. That could help my community. Otherwise, it's all I want to teach you. You tell me, no, this is not the way I want it. That's the way I want. And it's just like pleasing. I can do anything and everything in the world. You won't be pleased with me all the time. You will be for the moment, but next minute I do something to annoy you. That's the nature of human beings. So focusing on somebody else will not work, but focusing within. And if you find that light, that love, that peace within, then you can't help it. But not to be kind to others and not to take care of them, not to do the best you can for others too.
What do you think the world would be like if all people on the planet lived their lives like that?
Have you ever had that? Well, I mean, we have a history of, I don't know how many millions of people we've had people. We don't have, written language, written documents for,
I know.
But from what we know, it's always wars, because power, as human beings, there's no end to our greed. There's no end to our power. There's no end. Because we're part of this essence. That's why.
That's why I like this Golden Rule website, because they have study guides and curriculum and things on it, because we tend to think of it as being a very lovely sentiment, be nice. But really, it's a lot more complicated than that and complex, because we are human beings, So I think it's good for us to take it very seriously. How about somebody else?
I wanted to know that Nancy just chatted that she has to leave now, so I was going to say goodbye to her, but she has just left.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anybody else? Let's do one more and then I'll move on to the Beatitudes. Anybody else? Okay. If you think of one, we can come back. How's that? I wanted to get into the Beatitudes because when I was thinking about the golden rule and how it is in one form or another most of the world tradition, the religious traditions, as well as philosophy. And then I started thinking about, and I don't even know why I was thinking about the Beatitudes, probably because I was supposed to preach on it that day or something. But I started wondering, is there anything like the Beatitudes in other religions in Scripture? The Beatitudes are the Beatitudes comes from the Greek for bless. Blessed are you, or blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are. So it means the blesseds. And in this is for Christians, this is the Gospel of Matthew, although there are Beatitudes in another gospel as well. But this is Matthew's, and Matthew puts his at the very beginning of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. It's his first sermon, his first teaching, according to Matthew. And so it really is laying out his ethics, his values, and what he thinks or teaches us about how we should be living in the world. So anyway, that's what the Beatitudes are. And Christians will often say, you know, for all of those who want to put the 10 Commandments up in schools, how about you put the Beatitudes up? Because actually they sound really nice, but they're pretty tough. Jesus is pretty, he says it in such a lovely way, but it's hard stuff. And Christians throughout the ages have really said, I can't do that. Jesus may have been able to do that, but I can't do that. But that's not what he said. He didn't say, I'll do it, you don't have to. No. So I'll just, and I also wanted to say, I use the translation that says, blessed are the poor in spirit. In Luke's gospel, it's just blessed are the poor. Now, that creates a whole different meaning, right? But Matthew, poor in spirit. For theirs is the kingdom. And I use kingdom because I'm a very big proponent of inclusive language and also trying to get language in Scripture away from hierarchical language. So instead of kingdom, some people will use reign instead of kingdom of God, they'll say reign of God. Yeah, reign is still pretty hierarchical. So kingdom is the sense that we're all in this together. It's not hierarchical, it is collaborative. And so that's why I'm using kingdom. So blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they'll be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Although Luke says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst, for they will be filled. Luke is a much more social gospel, social justice gospel. Matthew is the more spiritual side. Anyway, blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Let's come back here. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So, did anybody or everybody have a chance to look at this video on the Beatitudes? I know Siva did. Anybody? And it's not long. Should I go ahead and play that one, or you want to just go ahead and discuss Beatitudes? Up to you.
I would like to challenge.
Okay. Which part?
Yeah. The whole idea. You know, this is where any kind of a religion gets in the way, because the reward for doing whatever it is should be now. So if I'm nice, I feel good because I'm nice.
Mhm.
And not that I get rewarded in heaven.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I hear you.
And that every single one of these, blessed is the poor because they'll get their reward, that's baloney.
Well, let me say this. In my way of thinking, the kingdom of heaven is not
Is now.
out there, up there somewhere. It's here. It's here right now. We're in it right now.
I understand that. That's in your mind, and I respect that. But you know, you and all the people that are here, we're very intelligent. We just happen to be born intelligent, and in a relatively safe family. We didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel threatened. Maybe my parents did, but I didn't feel threatened growing up.
Mm.
So this is like bait for people who are aware that they're suffering. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, behave yourself because you'll get your reward. That's too.
Yeah, let me just say, you know, it's when you read the gospel, sometimes we have to remember that, you know, nobody was there with the video camera recording Jesus, right? So we only get like later people remembering what he said. And but at the time that this was written, they were a community under persecution. Were
Absolutely.
being reviled and persecuted. So it was to comfort and say, okay, you're poor in spirit, but you know,
I get that, but you see, the world is exactly like that.
Yeah.
Jesus was part of this group of aware Jews who noticed that the clergy, the Kohanim and the Levites, who didn't get land in the Bible story, they got the control of they got power. They were the connection to God.
Yeah.
This is really anti-Jewish. Anybody is supposed to be able to talk their concerns over with something more spiritual.
I hear what you're saying. Well, and I'm not saying that these are Beatitudes. They are in the Christian gospel. Certainly not promoting this as something that everybody of every tradition should adopt right now. You know what? I'm going to play the video because I think it addresses a little bit of this. Is that okay?
Okay.
Sure.
All right. It's not long.
Please.
It's me talking. I'm sorry, but you know, I can't move. Come on, move. There it is. Duck player. Oh, no, not you.
Aggressive.
We've seen you already. Karen Armstrong. We want to hear from me.
Oh, is that Karen Armstrong?
Yeah, it's Karen Armstrong.
Hmm.
Having a lot of trouble maneuvering. Here we go. There we go. That's me.
Hi, everybody. This is Pastor Susan, coming to you as the interfaith pastor. And I wanted to talk today about the gospel reading that we just had this past Sunday, which was the Beatitudes. Now, many people, even if they're not Christian, might know the Beatitudes or have some idea of what they might be. They're the blessed R's, right? Blessed are the poor or the poor in spirit, depending which gospel you're reading. The meek, blessed be those who mourn, blessed are the peacemakers, and so on and so forth. So this week's reading was from the Matthew gospel, and Matthew has the Beatitudes coming right at the beginning of Jesus's ministry. And it's the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, what in Matthew is called the Sermon on the Mount. So he's got a bunch of chapters with teachings of Jesus. And it all starts out with these Beatitudes. And so I was curious. I was curious about the Beatitudes, does anything like them appear in other religions? I'm just curious. Wondering, because, the golden rule is, and you may be familiar with this poster, that the golden rule appears in, different wording and everything, but the idea is the same in many, many, many of the major world's religions. And in fact, there's a wonderful website where you can purchase the poster, but they also have amazing other resources, curriculum, and all kinds of information, study guides, and it's just a wonderful resource. I'll give you the link later. But anyway, I was thinking, is there anything similar for the Beatitudes? So of course, what do you do when you want to know something, right? You Google it, the Beatitudes in the world's religions. And I did actually find I found one resource. I'm going to try to pull that up for you in a second here. But anyway, it is Strangers on the Shore. It's a book called Strangers on the Shore, the Beatitudes and other world's religions. Hopefully this will work. There it is. So I actually had to go up to the GTU, the Graduate Theological Union here in Berkeley, had to go up to the library to get it. Fascinating. And indeed, there are many, many similarities in other sacred writings that express the same kinds of things that are in the Beatitudes. So the writings that this author uses to compare the teachings of the Beatitudes, he uses the Tanakh, or the Hebrew Bible, and he uses the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita for Hinduism. And for Buddhism, he used a number of writings. He used the Buddha's sermon, his first sermon in Deer Park in India, and also some of his writings like the Eightfold Path and so on. So he works a lot with those texts. And so as I was reading this and thinking about how do the Beatitudes contrast, and it was quite interesting to see how a lot of the and often we don't know what to call it. The Beatitudes, are these ethics? Are these commandments? Are these rules? Let me pull up another here. You may have seen this meme that came out recently. Kurt Vonnegut quote, "For some reason, the most vocal Christians among us never mention the Beatitudes, but often with tears in their eyes, they demand that the 10 Commandments be posted in public buildings." And of course, that's Moses, not Jesus. I haven't heard one of them demand that the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, be posted anywhere. Blessed are the merciful in a courtroom. Blessed are the peacemakers in the Pentagon. Give me a break. Sounds very Kurt Vonnegut. And but it's a reminder that these are not necessarily they're not commandments. They're not rules. It's not really the same as the 10 commandments. It might be better to use the golden rule with that. And then there's only one. Go on to others. Jesus says, right? These are the greatest commandment. Anyway, what do we do with these? What does it say? How do we think about Beatitudes? So as Christians, for Christians, this is what Jesus is teaching. This is the very, very, very first thing that he wants his hearers to know. Now, part of it is the poor in spirit, the hungry, those who are grieving, those who are persecuted. Those were already there. People were already experiencing these things. So the blesseds are a recognition or an honoring of the situation that people already were in. But they also have wisdom for us today as well. And of course, when we read them, oftentimes we read them and think these are impossible. They're impossible. Well, a lot of the teachings of Jesus seem like they're impossible. But Jesus, here's the thing about the teachings of Jesus. What is Jesus always on about? In the parables, in teachings, all the time, what Jesus is talking about is the kingdom of God. Now, in recent days, there are many of us who have wanted to do away with some of the male language and also the hierarchical language. So kingdom has been being used as kingdom, which gives a different idea, right? That we live in the kingdom of God. So that's what I'll use. That's what I'll use here. But this is what Jesus is always on about. And the thing is, he's not always super clear. The kingdom of God is like a mustard seed. The kingdom of God is like a pearl. The kingdom of God is like this. It's like a woman making bread. Like, Jesus, could you be a little more clear here? What exactly is it? But in the Beatitudes, we have a pretty clear idea of the values, the ethics, the whatever you want to call them, the characteristics of the kingdom of God. And they're quite upside down from the usual values of the world, right?
Yes.
Being peaceful, all of those things. So anyway, I think this book would be a great study guide, actually, to read in an interfaith group. And just to go through and each group maybe do more commentary or elucidation on the sections that talk about those characteristics in their sacred text. You know how to use, it's there. It's there. Those values, those characteristics are there in all of these different religions. So it's kind of fun to look at that. I hope maybe someday there'll be a poster or a curriculum like the Golden Rule people did. But until then, it's kind of cool to read some of these texts and think, is this just a Jesus thing? Is this just a Christian thing? And then we find out that, we have a whole lot in common. We're not all the same, of course. We have disagreements. We have things we don't agree on. But in a lot of these values, we are definitely on the same page. And blessed are we. Blessed are those who, or as Jesus would say, those who have ears to hear, listen. So that's it for today. Blessed are you. Bye-bye.
Okay. So I obviously didn't send out any of the chapters from the book or anything because it's quite long. It was a lot. But I'm wondering, those of you who are either Christian or not, or Jewish or Sufi or whatever, have did any of the Beatitudes resonate with you, and so that you said, oh, that sounds like the teaching of so-and-so? Did any of that make any connection? Trying to get out of. Am I back? Anybody? Are y'all still there? Got real quiet.
John has his hands up.
John and Olga. Hi, John and Olga. Yeah, Matab. Yeah.
Actually, John wanted to.
Oh, John. I'm sorry.
Correct.
So you
Yes.
were just waving hi.
He had his hands. Oh, is that right? I thought he was talk. Sorry.
So the Beatitudes have always, to me, sounded very much like a particular Jewish set of writings called Pirkei Avot, which is I don't know if people have heard of it. It translates the sayings of the fathers. And it was, it's in the Talmud. It's a section of the Talmud in which ancient rabbis' aphorisms that they lived by were collected. So from about a couple of hundred years BCE to a few hundred years CE. So it goes over a several hundred-year period, and many of the Beatitudes to me are very similar to Beatitudes of famous rabbis like Hillel and others that are collected there. So I think it's very much reflecting the zeitgeist of wisdom during that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wisdom.
Yes,
Good word. Good word.
yes, things like praising humility. The great shall be brought small, and the small shall be made great, and things along those lines. Many such sayings. You know, blessed are those who care for the poor, or blessed are those who have sinned and repented more so than those who have never sinned, and just many sayings along those lines that I also hear reflected in Christian teachings, and especially in the Sermon on the Mount. So, yeah.
We know where Jesus got it all, so, you know.
Well, they were all in conversation with each other, is how I view it. It was a big conversation. It was a grand conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, okay, thank you. Anyone else have any reflections on any of the or all of the Beatitudes? Ashish.
These are obviously, I would say universal. And we found similar teachings in our tradition as well. The humility, just like you said, that is that is a prime quality if you want to achieve this realization. And so I would say that what I love about this is the universalism, and when we talk about religious the conflicts, etc., then sometimes I feel like we're all hearing the same things, and why there is so much of fights among ourselves, because these teachings that you shared with us are I believe that they're all in all of our religions, because they're all trying to tell us how to live and achieve that kind of a realization. We are all part of the what you bring up all the time is the kingdom of heaven is among us, right? So so I like the universality of these teachings. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I do too. I do too. I like the idea of, and it goes along with the golden rule too, and thinking, if these are the ethics of the kingdom of God, it's pretty clear that of how we should be in the world, right? That we should be kind, we should compassion, to go back to that. I think we should be compassionate. Anybody else have any reflections? Diane, anything? You look thoughtful. You're on mute.
I think that again, it's almost like when you gave us the other list to look at of the questions to think about, how some of the Beatitudes are easier for us to incorporate, but unlike people that didn't grow up reading the New Testament, I grew up with these, and they're important to me, and again, I think all of us would say, what in our lives, when we lay things out, what sticks out to us, what is it that's going to help us get up each day and live the best life we can. And I find the Beatitudes comforting. I can see Jesus talking to the people and thinking about his, you know, tone of voice and you know, and like you say, Susan, I mean, we know that we weren't there when Jesus said this. This was written down and it's been 2,000 years ago, but you know, that those are what I'm thinking about. You know, so thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's like what John was saying and Ashish too, that, you know, it's the sort of the stream, the river that flows through all the different traditions, you know, and it's just so wonderful to be able um, to know that that is a part of our humanity that we have to just hang on to. There's so many things that are trying to rip us away from our humanity or being human with one another that we have to, you know, adhere to these whatever we want to call them, values. How about anybody? Matab, you were supposed to say something.
I was just going to say something real quick. Say, I've always loved the one about blessed are the merciful.
Yeah.
Because I find in life, you know, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody needs to be forgiven. And if we can extend mercy to people as opposed to judgment or criticism or that kind of thing, we can not only make them feel better, we can make the world a better place. And honestly, we feel better about ourselves too, because anytime we can extend mercy or forgiveness or help to somebody, we help them and we also help ourselves at the same time.
Yeah. I go back to that question from the golden rule. What would the world be like if everyone sort of adhered to that kind of thing instead of being, how would it be on the internet if instead of immediately flashing back some nasty thing that we paused a minute or 10 minutes and thought about how might I be merciful or how might I be compassionate or whatever. But yeah. Yep. Thank you.
Susan, I'll just like to add one very short thing that in our tradition, all these things that you mentioned, compassion and so on, they emphasize a lot on the attitude with which we are compassionate. And that attitude is you and whoever you are being you are showing or you are being compassionate for, there is no difference. In other words, you are actually being compassionate to yourself. So this is an interesting way to also look at things, which is that, you know, we are all, I see myself in you in the sense that we are not different inherently, being another human being, and hence you are just another spark of God in that sense. So that's the only, I would say, add to from my tradition, that the attitude is very important.
Yeah, and you know what I was thinking too is oftentimes I am less merciful to myself than I am to others, or I'm more harsh, unforgiving with myself. And if we could turn that to, blessed, you know, how can I say that? But be compassionate with myself, be merciful to myself, be forgiving of myself. That's sometimes that's even harder, but I think that's part of it. So yeah.
Yes, that is also taught heavily, you know, which is the self-compassion. There is even, you know, there's a term in English, it will be self-compassion, which is without that, you can never achieve anything. So that's a sort of the fundamental, very foundational.
And that goes back to what Matab was saying too, right? It's got to come from
exactly
in me, in you.
Yeah, it's in you. Correct. Correct. If you don't feel like it is in you, then how can you feel that it's,
that's right.
Exactly. It's in others? So that's where the heavy emphasis on become a better you, better version of yourself on a daily basis, on a moment basis, right? How can I be a better human being?
Absolutely. Okay. One more? Anybody have one you've been just dying to say?
We have-
Diane, you're
We haven't heard from Edith. I wonder if
Edith.
Edith has anything to say.
hi. Is Edith still there?
Are you there, Edith?
She's here.
I am here. I'm just keep pressing the wrong buttons on the phone.
I know, me too.
Uh,
Any thoughts?
well, like Diane, I grew up with these. I remember having to memorize them as part of my confirmation class. I get Siva's point is that, you know, don't just be good because there's a reward after death. Be good because it's the right thing to do while we're living, while we're around people. And in that I do agree. But I do like the idea that
I don't agree with your quote of me.
oh, all right. Well, that's my philosophy. Is that you're good to be. It's important to be good now, and not for a reward in the future.
Yeah.
You know, maybe being good should be its
I would like
own
to
reward.
clarify.